Welcome back, everyone, to Meditations by Gregory T. Obert, bringing the best new guided meditations every other week. I'm your host, Gregory T. Obert. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I lied to you all a little bit because I said that I would be out this week, and that is still true. However, I wanted to try to put something up for everyone to listen to, just so that you had something to tide you over until, the following 2 weeks when I come back officially with another meditation. Now, I've been plugging my locals for quite a while now, and if you would like to support what I do, currently it's $10 a month, although that will probably be going up relatively soon. You can go support me directly, help out with the show, help out with other projects that I'd like to do, and as such, I wanted to bring to you one of the things that I am doing. Because if you're listening to this on audio, you may not always want to click through to see my locals. One of the things that I got done doing relatively recently was a mindfulness seminar. And this seminar was a 9-week course that easily I could charge over $1,000 for based on what other things are being offered on the internet. But because I want to try to be somewhat reasonable for people, that's why I started my locals at $10 a month. If you want to get the first part of this to see if it's for you, before you sign up for my locals, I decided to make that free in various places, but I hadn't made it free here on the podcast feed. So what follows is a re-recorded version of the first session. The reason I re-recorded it is because I was having so many audio issues as I was going through this class, and I ended up having to buy some new equipment. Even still, I'm going to need to buy more equipment. My computer is just unable to handle some of the things that I'm trying to do. So you will notice the last about 5 minutes or so of this is going to be a little garbled. I apologize for that. There's really not much I can do about it other than re-record the whole thing, and considering how long it is, I don't really want to do that right now. So I just want to give you a heads up. However, if you like what you hear, please do consider heading on over to Locals and signing up. I encourage you to strongly, because there's a lot of good stuff over there already, and there's going to be more stuff to come, including more seminars that I'd like to do and potentially more live streams. I'm still learning how to do all that, so I will be bringing more of that stuff to you all as I learn and as I am confident in the quality of the work that I'm bringing you, so it's not, trash. But yes, please do enjoy this first part of the class. Again, this is a 9-week course. Everything else is behind the paywall on Locals. So if you like what you hear, you want to learn more, there's a whole 9-week curriculum that I will put in the description so you have a sense of it. Because when I recorded this, I wasn't thinking about audio, so I may be referencing some things on slides that, obviously you can't see it. So I'll put the curriculum in the description, and you can make a determination for yourself if it's something that you want to do. And if it's not something that you can do at this time or want to do, consider someone else in your life that might benefit from it. Again, this is easily a $1,000 course, potentially $1,200. That's probably what I'll market it at if I do decide to put it up somewhere separately. Because based on my background, based on what I know, based on what I teach you, it's easily that amount of money. And you can sign up for $10. So highly encourage you to do so, especially before that price goes up. So even if you don't sign up and you just kind of want to listen and take from this what you will, I thank you for doing so. Please consider leaving a like, a 5-star rating, review, wherever you're listening to this. And again, thanks for your patience while I'm out. Until next time, be safe, be well, be powerful. Hello, everyone. Welcome sort of back to my mindfulness class. So for those that may have been here as this was being released live, I wanted to re-record some of the earlier modules of this seminar because the sound quality wasn't great. And for those of you that are here for the first time, welcome. Don't go back and listen to those old versions. This is the new, remastered, wonderful sounding, hopefully, presentation that I will be giving you today. So thank you for being here. Thank you for the support. This particular module is going to be free for everybody. So hopefully you like what you see here. If you do, please consider heading over to my locals to support me. I would really appreciate the support as it helps me do what I do. But without further ado, let's jump into it. And I want to make sure that I have everything set. Looks like everything's moving the way that it's supposed to. Fantastic. Okay, so who am I? I am Dr. Gregory T. Obert. I'm a clinical psychologist by trade. And I wanted to branch out a little bit and bring some, I think, much needed content to the internet at not just an affordable price, but also I want to bring content that's accurate, worthwhile, and coming from an expert source, which is me and all the people that helped me put together this seminar. I grew up in the Chicago area, and I went to undergrad at Augustana College in Rock Island, Illinois. I also got a master's in education from DePaul University, spent some time working in the city, and then I got my PhD and MS from Rosalind Franklin University. I've been working in mental health for about 12 years now. I've written a book, The Man on the Bench. I've produced numerous works, including podcasts, videos, and now the seminar. And of course, Podcaster is on there as well. I've done numerous podcasts. So that's great, Doc. But why me? You might be asking yourself. Why me? Why you in this case? Why you, Dr. Greg? Well, here's the thing. I became interested in alternative supplemental treatments in high school. For instance, I experienced Reiki for the first time, absolutely loved it. And I went on to eventually get my level 4 Reiki master teacher credential. I created a meditation podcast in 2016. It was sort of a fluke thing, but it ended up coming to fruition. It's been going mostly strong since then. I say mostly because there were a few times where I took off for a little bit, but it's going quite well, and I really enjoy the work that I create for that podcast. I also lead multiple mindfulness groups per week in my day job, and I would say I'm pretty qualified to teach what mindfulness is, and not only that, but how to implement it and the numerous aspects of mindfulness. So, sounds good. What are we going to be learning? Now, here's the thing that I want to throw out there. This is not an exhaustive list of mindfulness topics. However, I do think that this is a really great list of a lot of different things that you can use to help you in your daily lives. So originally when I created this class, it was 9 weeks. So I had 9 weeks of content once a week for, about 30 minutes per session. And what I do is I record all of these and I put them online up on locals for people to go back and refer to. I will likely sell the class as is somewhere else, but I'm going to tell you right now, you're getting a much better deal if you join my locals, so please do consider doing that. You're also going to get access to supplemental materials. So I created separate exercises for this class. You can't get them anywhere else. So if you want to listen to those files, you're going to need to go over to locals. Now, I do also want to acknowledge where a lot of help with this class is coming from. I had plenty of experience with mindfulness prior to my mental health work, so some of that material is coming from my experience. Some of that material is coming from these two sources. Both of these sources are excellent resources when it comes to mindfulness. The second one, Mindfulness-Based Relapse Prevention for Addictive Behaviors, a Clinician's Guide, that one is really more so for practitioners. There's still great information in there. However, I would say that you're probably going to want to steer clear of that if you're not in the mental health field or any field that's creating some kind of mindfulness course. I will, though, plug the first one, which is a mindfulness-based stress reduction workbook. This is an excellent resource. If you want supplemental material to go along with what we're going to be talking about in this class, go buy that, go check it out. It's awesome. There will be topics covered from that book here in this class. If you want, again, something that you can follow along to, I do highly recommend you go check it out. And it comes with 32 downloadable guided meditations. You have access to over 100 if you go sign up for my podcast. And by sign up, I mean subscribe, download episodes. However, if you're looking for some additional stuff, that is in this book as well. So, all right, without further ado, let's begin with Mindfulness Basics. Carl Rogers is one of my heroes in psychology. I think he created one of the best treatment modalities for helping people through life and through any mental health issues, disorders that they may be going through. It's not for everybody, but for the people it is meant for, it works wonders. So, here's a quote from him that I really, really like. "This process of the good life is not, I am convinced, a life for the faint-hearted. It involves the stretching and growing of becoming more and more of one's potentialities. It involves the courage to be." And I want to congratulate you for being here. Now, you might be listening to this under duress, in which case, I apologize. Get some help. But jokes aside, you're listening to this. I want to congratulate you for being here. I mean this sincerely, because not only does mindfulness help with all sorts of things, it's an excellent skill that improves so many different health outcomes. You just need to Google mindfulness and benefits of to see that. But it also suggests to me that you're here because you want to make a change. And change is hard. Change is very difficult. It involves the courage to be, to figure out who we are, who we want to be in this lifetime. And you know what? It's a lot easier to sit on the sofa, watch TV all day, stay on social media all day, point the finger, criticize, sit in the negative. It's a lot more difficult to change that. That involves courage. So, congratulations on being here, and I hope that this is something that is going to help you out. I know it will if you follow the steps. So, before we go on with anything, I want to start off with what mindfulness is. Now, this is a fancy buzzword. I say that because you hear this word a lot. Be more mindful, practice mindfulness. But, a lot of times I find that it's kind of vaguely defined. And a lot of the places that it is defined, some of those have some variable quality out there. I mean, there's some great resources out there, and then there's some other resources that are not. A lot of these resources are quite expensive, and sometimes for good reason, because there's great quality there, and sometimes not. I'll tell you, just a quick Google search, I found a $1,200 program that was a book. It was a book and handouts, and it was, here it is, and you pass this out to your organization. That's crazy. That's not at all a great way to talk about mindfulness. Free resources are out there, but you're not always going to get great quality for that just because, they're free, right? Some of them are going to be great resources, some of them aren't. So, how do you know you're getting good quality? I'm going to give you an example of this that came from my personal life. I worked for a community mental health agency in Chicago for about 9 months or so. And during my orientation, I had a woman come in to my group, and she spoke for 30 minutes about, what a great organization this place was, and, she's just so glad that we're here, and yada, yada, yada. I tell you, after 30 minutes, I still, to this day, years later, 10 years later, actually, I have no idea what this woman did at the company. Not a clue. She had 30 minutes of blustering, didn't help me out whatsoever. Could not tell you how she fit into that organization. And that's why I want to create this class. I wanted to create this class, and I have created this class to help you cut through all of the BS. I offer you these things: clear, concise definitions, practical examples, as well as skills to help you utilize mindfulness in your daily lives. So I want to save you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars and help you improve your lives. Okay, enough of my own blustering and self-promotion. What is mindfulness? It's this: paying attention on purpose to the present moment, non-judgmentally. There's your definition. This is the key, the cornerstone to everything relating to mindfulness. Certainly in this class, I would argue out in the real world as well. Any other mindfulness things that you do. If you keep this in mind, you're going to be further ahead than most people out there. Now, I can give you a simple, concise definition. But what does all this mean, and how does it apply? Well, let's break this definition down. That's what we're going to be doing the rest of today's module. So, paying attention, the act of close or careful observing or listening. Now, this is an intentional focusing on the moment at hand. And let's be real, paying attention has always been difficult for people. It doesn't matter what age you lived in. You got to think, people have always dealt with things out there: illness, aging, death, feelings of inadequacy, war, famine. All that stuff has existed in the world for humans. Who wants to pay attention to that? Who honestly wants to pay attention to that? Because it sounds awful. It is way easier to distract yourself than to acknowledge the life that's going on around you. And today, it's even more difficult to do that. I would not be surprised if, as I am talking, some of you are checking your email, checking social media, checking your smartphones, tablets. Maybe you have the TV on in the background. We're so focused on other things. With smartphones, the internet, email, terrorism, cyber attacks, information warfare, social media, politics, all sorts of things. A 24-hour news cycle, right? All sorts of things are beamed into our brains on a daily basis, and it makes it difficult to focus. You even got to think about some things like the emergence of AI, what this might mean for people's jobs and job security. We have a lot of worries, a lot of concerns. It's a lot easier to distract than to acknowledge the life going on around us. But here's the thing. If we are living a mindful life, we are paying attention to what's going on around us. On purpose. This means being deliberate, no multitasking. I'm going to challenge you, if you are watching this and doing other things, try to set those other things down and just focus on what's going on here. You want to try, when you're being purposeful, you're making an effort. It means choosing to focus to the best of your ability, choosing to focus to the best of your ability to improve your life, to improve your performance. It can be very easy to fall into what I call autopilot. Now, if you've done any sort of mindfulness stuff in the past, this may have been referred to as mindlessness. I don't like that because it kind of makes you sound, like you're completely absent or you don't have a brain or something. Autopilot is the term that I'm going to use. And essentially, this is doing something automatically or in a way that's habit driven. This is the opposite of mindfulness. We're on autopilot every day, most of the time. I mean, as an example, how many of you got in the car and drove? If you don't drive, maybe got in the bike, had someone else drive, bus, whatever. And while you're driving, you just zone out. You just completely zone out and you just make the turns, go where you need to go. And maybe most of the time that works for you. And then sometimes you're intending to go somewhere else, but you fall into autopilot and you just kind of go your regular route. I can tell you I've done this not often, but at least a number of times in my life where I'm just going to work when I wanted to go somewhere maybe near work or maybe the complete opposite direction of work. But because I'm so stuck in autopilot, I just go. What about brushing your teeth? How many of you actually spent the time to really pay attention on purpose to that experience this morning? Probably not many. What about the feeling of the shirt you're wearing on your skin if you're wearing a shirt? I bet you didn't even think about that until I said something. So here's the thing. I'm not trying to demonize autopilot. Autopilot isn't always bad. Sometimes we need it. So as an example, imagine the first time that you rode a bike versus now. First time you ride, you're trying to figure out your balance, how your legs are supposed to go, where your hands are supposed to be. Like you're trying to get all the mechanics of it. You do that for a while, you eventually learn how to do it, and now you're riding a bike. You don't think about those things because you don't need to. It's become automatic. So autopilot's not a bad thing. It can free up our mental resources. The problem is when we use autopilot only, solely, exclusively, it's going to set us up for some disaster. Now, to the present moment, what is currently going on around us? That's really what this means. Now, this is difficult to do because our brains are wired to think about a lot of different things throughout the day. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, researchers believe humans are uniquely capable of considering the past and the future in ways that animals can't. Typically, most animals probably only think about the present. I mean, I'll give you an example. My bad. I have a dog who loves going for walks, as most dogs do. And whenever I go put my shoes on, she gets so excited and goes nuts. Now, I put on my shoes a decent number of times throughout the day, and I'm not always taking her for walks when I put those on. However, she's not considering the fact that she has a, 30, 40% chance, whatever it is, when I put my shoes on that she's going to go for a walk. She's going to get a walk. All she's seeing is present moment, shoes, time for walk. Now, that's not going to help us as people out, because if we were solely focused on the present all the time and didn't consider anything, that's going to be an issue. By anything, I mean past or future. However, being stuck too far in the past, too much in the past, too far, too much in the future, that's going to be a big issue. So what do I mean by that? Well, here's an example. If I'm focusing on the past, again, things that have already happened, if I'm only sort of low engagement with the past, I'm going to consider and learn from past events. So as an example, think about a time when you did something you regretted in the past, and you didn't repeat that mistake. An example that sticks in my mind is touching a hot oven. I remember being, must be 3, 4, one of my earliest memories. And, my mom kept saying, that's hot, don't touch that. I didn't know what hot meant. I touched it, my hand burned. I knew what hot meant. Guess what? Didn't touch the oven. When she said hot, then I learned, don't touch that. Or at least now that I'm older, there's more nuance there, right? Get some protection so that I'm not burning myself. Okay, nothing wrong with that. Here's a high engagement issue. This is where it becomes harmful. We can get stuck thinking about more unpleasant memories. We can also experience strong unpleasant emotions. So, as an example, if I'm getting stuck on overthinking a past mistake, maybe I'm doing myself a disservice. So, for example, if I missed a deadline at work and I'm telling myself, I'm just the worst worker possible. I've completely bungled the job. Well, that might be true. But that mistake might not be as bad as I think. But because I'm so stuck in the past, I'm not paying attention to the present moment, and only having low engagement with the past, I'm really bringing up this negative self-esteem, self-image stuff for myself. Also, when we talk about negative emotions, strong unpleasant emotions, think about what happens to people when you dwell on the past. You're usually going to be full of sadness and regret. Classic example, someone who is stuck in high school. Someone who just, it's 20 years after they graduated, they're still wearing the Letterman jacket, they're still talking about high school sports, they're trying to go to all the reunions and hang out and talk about the good old days in high school. Listen, you may have had a great experience in high school. You may have had a poor experience in high school. You can care about high school. That's fine. If you only live to talk about what happened in your good old days, your glory days of high school, well, you're doing yourself a disservice because you're not focusing on the next phase of life, the next phases of life. And you might be robbing yourself of even better glory days, if you will. They could be unfolding right in front of you. And if you're only focused on, what happened from ages 14 to 18, well, you might be missing out. I say you a lot, not you, the listener, necessarily, unless that applies to you, just the general you. Now let's look at the opposite problem, focusing on the future. Again, low engagement. We can consider and predict things that might happen, and this can be useful. For example, if I'm driving down the street and I notice that there's a green stoplight up ahead, and it's been green for a while. I've been able to see it for the last, maybe 15 seconds, and it's still green. Guess what? It's probably going to turn red soon. It may not, but, maybe I just kind of ease off the accelerator so that I can prepare myself in case I need to hit the brakes. That's great. I'm predicting what's going to happen. I may be wrong. If I'm wrong, okay, there's no issue. And if I'm right, I've prepared myself for, having to stop. And I'm potentially saving myself from a hard stop, best case scenario, worst case scenario, an accident. Now, high engagement, getting stuck in the future. This can be harmful. We're going to think about unpleasant predictions. We're going to overthink multiple possibilities that may or may not come to pass. Excuse me 1 second. This is going to paralyze us from taking any kind of action because we're going to be thinking so much about all the different possibilities that could happen that we're not going to. Classic studies in psychology talk about this, where it's I think the kind of the colloquial term is analysis paralysis, right? If I am given 2 to 3 choices, I can make a decision, fairly easily. If I'm given 30 choices, it's very overwhelming. It takes a long time to make a decision. With 30 choices that I'm going through with equal opportunity, that's tough to do. So, excuse me, imagine thinking about all the many different scenarios of how the future could unfold. Well, that's going to be an issue. You're going to be paralyzed. Strong, unpleasant emotions. Again, think about what happens when people dwell on the future. You're looking at anxiety and fear as your common emotions. Note to self, don't drink sparkling water before doing this. Think about a person who's a freshman in college. And this person has, his career 10 years in the future planned out to the month. This month is going to be this month's going to be this month's going to be this. I mean, it's not bad to plan out your future, but imagine believing that you can accurately predict and plan for something 10 years in the future. And what I mean by that is to the month, like this person is trying to do. There's going to be so much anxiety and fear if anything gets knocked out of place, because you're in month 7, and if it doesn't go the way that you want, well, now your whole 10-year plan is in jeopardy from the perspective of this person. So being too stuck in the future is gonna be harmful for us. And remember, predictions, I really like that last point. Predictions are not guarantees. Just like with the stoplight example that I used, that light could turn red, it might not. But if we get stuck and assume that predictions are guarantees, man, we're going to live a poor quality life. So, focusing on the present. This is what mindfulness is trying to teach you to do. Low engagement. We're going to have trouble paying attention. And we're going to have trouble paying attention to one of the most valuable things that we have. Our ability to create action in the here and now. I can't control what happened 5 minutes ago. I can't control what happens 5 minutes from now. What I can do is control what I'm doing in this moment. Again, as an example, how many of you, just to throw that out there, how many of you have checked your phone since we started doing this? How many of you have been able to stick to the challenge? If you've been able to, that's great. Let me know. I would love to hear that. Congrats. If you haven't, it doesn't mean you're a failure. It means it's tough. It's tough to stay in the present moment. It's going to lead to autopilot, poorer decisions, and likely missing important information about what's going on. If you've been on your phone multitasking, maybe you've heard everything that I've said, but has it stuck? Do you remember what we talked about with this definition up to this point, or has it kind of just been white noise in the background? Maybe you're very skilled at multitasking. I would argue you can do better in your life if you're focusing on one thing at a time and really throwing yourself into that in the present moment. And that's the thing. High engagement. So this helps us focus on senses that helps us see what is going on around us. I'm able to focus on what's happening around me and make better decisions in the moment. So I have a little one at home, 3 months, and I could sit here and I could think about the baby and what's going on and what I need to do for her after this and this that. I can't do any of that right now. My time is with you all. And so focusing on now, noticing my thoughts, my feelings, my behaviors, the details of this moment with you all, it's going to help me make better decisions, which is going to lead to a better life. And last but not least, the last part of that definition, non-judgmentally, in my opinion, the hardest part about mindfulness. Now, There's kind of the typical religious definition that I hear a lot when I talk about this. And that really kind of relates to you don't want to assume something about someone else as you may be wrong. So usually what I hear is people say I shouldn't make judgments, evaluations about other people. Now, again, this makes sense in certain contexts. In some contexts, it doesn't make sense. So as an example, imagine that there's a strange person who yelled at you for looking at them versus a strange person who did the same thing due to a stressor like losing a job. In that first scenario, you may think the person's crazy, right? You don't have all the information. But if this same person comes to you and they say, I'm sorry, I just lost my job. Or, maybe you don't know, but you kind of want to extend some grace and you say, oh, this person may have just lost their job. That's going to change how you view that person. The behavior is not okay either way, but it's more understandable in that latter because you feel for the person a bit more. Now, judging without knowing the full truth behind the other person can make us feel embarrassed after the fact. Now, here's the thing though. I'm not talking about that when I say non-judgmentally in mindfulness. This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about focusing solely on the facts. Example, the sky is generally blue. There are exceptions to that. Generally speaking, it is blue, and that is something that you can't argue with. So let's go into that a little bit more. Judgments. There's usually two kinds of judgments. There are opinions, so this is a personal view about a person, place, or event, and these are fine. Everyone's got opinions. However, these are not facts. Now, we like to believe that our opinions are correct. They are factual. However, it doesn't make them that true. As an example, the best fruit, unquestioningly, red delicious apples. And if you disagree with me, you're wrong. Now, here's the thing. For those of you that really like red delicious apples, yeah, you're in total agreement. Preach. For those of you that think oranges, bananas, plums, whatever, some kind of berry is the best fruit, you're saying I'm wrong. But here's the thing. I am wrong. I'm wrong because I am saying that my opinion is factual. Now, it's factual to say that my opinion is red delicious apples are the best fruit because that's my opinion. And that's okay. Here's the thing, though. Facts cannot be reasonably disagreed with. If we mistake our opinions for facts, our worldviews are likely going to become pretty skewed. We don't want that. Predictions are the second kind of judgment. This is really making a guess about something that we don't have proof of, and taking that as gospel truth. So, again, going back to the example of I made a mistake at work, I missed the deadline, I'm going to get fired. That could happen, and it might not happen. So, why take the prediction as factual? But if I'm taking the prediction as factual, I'm not being non-judgmental. So I'd like to share an example of this. And this is from a Twitter account, X account, called Defiant L's. And L's are just like loss. This person said, if you voted for Trump in 2016, it's possible you just didn't know any better. If you vote for Trump in 2020, you're pure evil. Try to take your political views out of this for a second, because I'm trying to prove a point here. Later on, this person said 4 years later I think the world will be a better place if we stop believing that people who think differently to us are evil. This person's opinion was confused as fact in the beginning, and later changed their tune. And that's to be commended. That's the reason why I left this person's name up there, because I want to commend them for what they did. And in fact, I publicly did this because this person reached out to this Defiant L's account and put this up there. Hi, this is fair. I used to believe people who think differently to me are evil. Maybe I will believe it again in the future. I don't know, but now I don't. And I responded to this person and said, it takes a lot of courage to admit that you changed your mind and that what you believed before, you may not believe now. And that's okay. That's okay. That's what makes being non-judgmental so hard. Some other practical examples of this. Who here remembers 2012? I'm old enough to remember 2012 and the Mayan apocalypse, right? The end of the world because the Mayan calendar was running out or some such nonsense. I don't quite remember. I think that's what it was. It just ended, or they didn't have a number past 2012, something like that. And you had people that genuinely, got into this and, oh my gosh, I got to prepare the end of the world. Same thing happened in 2000, Y2K, right? I'm sure it's happened in history prior to then as well. But how did these predictions impact people's lives at the time? How did it affect your life at the time? Maybe all you did was think about it and laugh and move on. Maybe some of you really took to it. It doesn't make you a worse person. It just means that it was a tough situation that you were a part of because you confused prediction for fact. So, if it's not already, apparent, why should we be non-judgmental? Because a lot of judgments create strong, unpleasant emotions that really don't serve a purpose other than to upset us, because they're just not based in facts. They urge us to do things that aren't going to fit with reality. Again, going back to the 2012 prediction, being judgmental, mistaking my prediction for fact, strong, unpleasant emotions that served only to upset me because, oh man, the end of the world is happening, if I believed that, right? Which I didn't at the time. If I believed that, panic, fear, preparation, maybe preaching to other people to get ready. And I would have done things that didn't really fit in with reality. Getting a bunker, getting all sorts of food, preparing for the end of the world. And then it didn't happen. We're all still here. Unless the Mayan apocalypse happened and we're just in some alternate timeline, I don't know. That's above my head. What I do know is that, from my perspective, everything was fine. And if I had acted like that person that was preparing for the end of the world, it would not have gone well for me. Not only during the preparation, but the aftermath as well. So what are the benefits of being non-judgmental? Focusing on the facts means better information for the current situation. You aren't getting taken out of the moment because you're focused on facts rather than judgments. Better information is going to lead to more effective decisions. If you're more aware of what's going on around you and within any given situation, you can make decisions that will be more beneficial and effective for your goals. Here's an example. A crying baby is doing it on purpose and knows better. Well, here's the thing. Having a little one, I can tell you sleepless nights, crying baby, not fun. Not fun whatsoever. And yeah, when you're in the thick of it, it can really feel like that baby's doing it on purpose. But you know what? The baby doesn't know any better. But if I live my life believing that the baby knows better, they're doing it on purpose, and I confuse that for fact, how am I going to get through that situation? How's that situation going to go for my baby? it's probably not going to be great for either one of us. And lastly, being non-judgmental is going to improve communication. If I'm able to separate fact from judgment, I can hold my opinions a little more lightly, thus avoiding unnecessary arguments. A classic example, think about political discussion around the holidays, like Thanksgiving, with a family member you disagree with. If you're able to kind of separate yourself from the judgments, from the opinions, as fact, maybe you're going to have better communication with that person. You might not. If you're on opposite ends of the political spectrum, you might not like each other all that much. Okay. Even still, in that moment, you might be able to have better communication than you would normally otherwise. So, here's an exercise that you can do. This is ideally done with food, because we'll be using all of our senses. And I believe this is a supplemental activity that I recorded and put on Locals, so you can go check that out and practice mindfulness with that activity. Now, in summary, and by the way, I think that exercise is free for everyone, so you should be able to go over there and listen to it, but if you can't, I will make it free, just to make sure that everyone can do that. So in summary, mindfulness, paying attention on purpose to the present moment, non-judgmentally. That's it. Now here's what I'd like you to do. Find one task over the next week and practice it mindfully for 2 to 5 minutes. Whatever that activity is, practice it for 2 to 5 minutes, more mindfully. And we're going to talk a lot more in the next the next module about how to practice mindfulness if the definition was not as helpful as you'd like it to be. So ignore the time on there because that's old, but we're going to look at how to practice mindfulness next time. And I just want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to this seminar. Please do check out my locals.gregorytobert.com to check out that supplemental activity and all the other things that I do. You can also check out my podcast, Meditations by Gregory T. Obert, wherever you listen to podcasts. And I'm looking forward to seeing you hopefully in session 2. So thank you for your time. Until next time, be safe, be well, be powerful.